What's up, RotoGrinders? Welcome to a pre-lock show of NFL Monday Night Football. I am your host today, TJ Zwarych, and I am joined by Keith, the Iceman Eyster. How you doing, Keith?
Pretty good. Excited for this football game. Fun venue down in Mexico City, so that's always interesting anytime we get a rare event like that. Changes the dynamics a little bit, but had a lot going on with NBA earlier, ready to get into some NFL.
All right, let's do it here. And before we do that, I'm interested to see if you might have some bets that you might like on tonight's slate as well, because we've got you covered at scoresandodds.com, your number one place for all things sports betting. Check it out for everything you need to make you a better sports bettor, including our new Parlay IQ tool. Now with FanDuel Sportsbook integration, you can build your optimal same-game parlays based on data from thousands of simulated games, and with a click of a button, you can bring that bet slip directly into the FanDuel Sportsbook. It almost seems a little bit too easy.
It's fantastic. It's one click. Your bet's right there. There's some awesome tools over there on Scores and Odds. You can compare odds, get the picks from all the experts. So definitely worth it. Great website. When are we going to get you contributing over there?
I'm ready.
You don't do
Anytime
in Canada, much so do.
So that's the thing, is it's like I can't do sports betting outside of, I can still do parlays though, because we got something called a sports select, and so you can still like go and do the government mandated ones. And the nice thing about those actually is like those lines just don't change throughout the day. It's printed in the morning and they're left there till the game starts. So some interesting ways I could go about that. But then in addition to that, with the amount of DFS I play, it's pretty similar to sports betting research anyways. And so I'm ready to do content whenever. I can still do the research even if I'm not making the bets. I honestly just don't even know who to talk to it about. But Parlay IQ is definitely something that you should check out, because like Keith said, it's so easy and up on scoresandodds.com, and it will help you make a lot of money. To those watching us on YouTube today, thank you. Hit the like button for us. We got almost 100 people watching. Let's get this like count out so that we can keep getting sponsors, keep giving you free content so that this show doesn't have to become premium. And then when we got some QQs, hit us with them in the YouTube chat. Hit us for premium members in the NFL Crunch Time chat on the RotoGrinders and Scores and Odds Discord page. We'll hit those ones first. We'll go to the YouTube page second. And then from there, we will start breaking down this slate. I think we're going to start with DraftKings here first. What's your general overview of this slate today, Keith, before we kind of talk about our favorite point per dollar values?
Yeah, kind of a low total here and a neutral venue. So I think that's a fun factor here. The 49ers showing up as 10-point favorites is interesting, but then they're traveling to this neutral site. So I think this game might be a little bit closer than people. Obviously, the Cardinals with their backup quarterback and their San Francisco with their fantastic defense, I think the spread makes sense. But I wouldn't be surprised if this game stays a little bit closer than people are projecting for a little bit longer. Colt McCoy is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. He's obviously not Kyler Murray, but the way the 49ers play, I don't see them separating as much to begin the game. So I kind of see it as a close game for the first half, and then the 49ers pulling away late and possibly even covering the spread. Like I could see them winning by 2 touchdowns. I just don't think it's going to be out of hand early. The Niners like to run quite a bit, so a little bit of a slower pace compared to what Arizona is used to. I do like that Arizona still threw the ball a ton with Colt McCoy last week. Was a little bit concerned that we might see more of a run-heavy script from Arizona, but even though they won that game, they still threw the ball quite a bit with McCoy under center last week. So I'm still very interested in all of the Cardinals' receiving options. Obviously, a tough defense here in San Francisco, but I think it'll be a little bit closer to start with San Francisco separating late.
From a game script standpoint, I agree with you 100%. And so diving into some of those plays that would kind of go with that script that you mentioned, a lot of running the ball for San Francisco. First question that I think will be relevant to a lot of people that are in the chat anyways. What are your thoughts on the surprise Elijah Mitchell getting a ton of run in his first game back off the IR. Now with Christian McCaffrey as projecting as the best captain, best raw points option today, how do you prioritize these guys optimally in tournaments, and can you play them both in the same lineup?
Yeah, so the one that I've been struggling with there is, can you play them both in the same lineup? Especially because Christian McCaffrey is more than likely going to score the most fantasy points on the slate. I mean, obviously touchdown variance can change that, but as far as a median projection goes, McCaffrey is the top projected play. So if you're playing McCaffrey at the captain, if Mitchell cutting into that, is that enough to take McCaffrey out of the captain and maybe we should be looking elsewhere? In my opinion, I still think McCaffrey can do it in so many different ways. If he scores once, I could see them, like if they both score a touchdown, I could see them both being optimal. I generally don't play two running backs from the same team, especially when they're priced where these two guys are, with McCaffrey over 11K. And it's not like Mitchell is 2 or 3K. He's up at 5,800. I still think there's room, just because the 49ers are such a run-heavy offense, that they can both get there. So I do like McCaffrey as the captain, and I think you can play Mitchell in those lineups also.
Same page as me today. I don't even really have much I have to add. The one thing I will say is that for me, this feels a lot like a better hand building slate than an optimizer slate, because I want to play Christian McCaffrey and Eli Mitchell together, but I want to build my lineup to fit that. So I want to mix it in with Robbie Gould and the 49ers defense, that type of thing. And then mix and match different Cardinals pass catchers along the way there. But I think an interesting rule, if you are doing an MME type situation today, would be perhaps to set a limit of maximum 2 McCaffrey, Garoppolo, and Eli Mitchell, and just basically figure that if I'm playing both of the running backs together, that probably means they're the ones scoring the touchdowns. The QB doesn't have a very big day. And so I want to script the quarterback out of it in the lineups that I have the double running back kind of setting. Next thing is DeAndre Hopkins, limited in practice all week. Are you looking at him any differently than you would on a normal slate, or is it just kind of all systems go for you?
It's all systems go for Hopkins. Kind of talked about the pass volume that the Cardinals deployed last week, even with the backup quarterback. 14 targets for DeAndre Hopkins. He's one of the highest volume guys in the NFL. So if we're projecting Arizona to play from behind, they're a pass heavy team anyway. I'm not concerned about Hopkins at all.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat today. I will say, however, that I think I actually like going with Rondale Moore a little bit more. But we're going to start talking about the captain, and then we are going to start filling out the rest of the lineup here for you on DraftKings. Before I start looking at the YouTube chat for QQs, I want at least 25 likes, because we got 100 people watching. This is sad right now, guys. Hit the like button, and then we'll get QQs from the YouTube chat. But until then, I'm still looking at the NFL and NFL Crunch Time Discord chats over here on RG. So who is your priority for captain in optimal lineups? Is it Christian McCaffrey? Are we spending that salary there? And then who would be some of your favorite contrarian captains for tournaments?
Yeah, I do want to get up to McCaffrey still. He's just such a safe play, in my opinion, because of the work that he can get in the passing game. You mentioned any bets that I might like. One of them I really like today is Christian McCaffrey over his receiving yards. I think he was at like 36.5, if I remember earlier. I could see Mitchell get 15 to 16 carries again, and McCaffrey getting 5, 6, 7, 8 targets. And that's the reason that I think playing them both together, it is a good route on this slate. It's expensive. You do have to make a couple of sacrifices, but I think that the tight end situation for the Cardinals helps make that a pretty easy build. So getting up to McCaffrey is how I would do it optimally.
I agree with you. I think Christian McCaffrey is the optimal guy there, 100%. I wouldn't, if I'm trying to double up, things like that, I don't think I'd be making I'd be straying away simply because his floor is just so high. That's the biggest reason. Like, yes, he's got a high ceiling, but if they're down, well, he's probably going to get the most targets in the game. If they're up, he's probably going to get the most rushes. But regardless, he's probably going to get the most combined touches. And so especially where you get that point per dollar on the reception, McCaffrey is such a great play in that MVP spot, in that captain spot, sorry. And so while he will be the highest owned by probably twice as much as anybody else, I do think he's going to be optimal in there as well. If you're trying to get difference in tournaments, who are some of the guys that you'd be looking to go to? Because I think for me personally, when I see our projected ownership here, and I guess I'm looking, I had the blitz up in front of me right now. If maybe we can scroll a little bit to the side here so I can see the ownership on this screen, just so I'm looking at the same one and not giving away the blitz ones for free here. But like right now, we're looking at probably double McCaffrey on anything else. The next highest owned captains we're looking at Deebo Samuel, Jimmy Garoppolo, DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think any of those are bad options, but because they're also getting double-digit ownership, I feel like I would just rather go to McCaffrey or get something completely off the board. Go with or maybe not completely off the board, but more off the board with Rondale Moore, or completely off the board with the 49ers defense, Eli Mitchell as the captain, or Robbie Gould as the captain, something like that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. The one guy in that of the like 10% range guys that I have a lot of interest in is DeAndre Hopkins, just because of that crazy volume that he can see. I think his touchdown equity is really good as well. So I do want to be overweight on Hopkins, but the 49ers guys, I agree with you. Like the Deebo, Garoppolo, like it's going to be McCaffrey in my opinion, of the higher end guys. And if I'm not going to McCaffrey, then I like to just go down to somebody who's half the ownership, like Brandon Ayuk. George Kittle, we're projecting very low owned. The Cardinals have struggled against the tight end position several years running now. Kittle can certainly disappear from games, but he's one of the best run after catch guys in the NFL. I could certainly see him breaking off a huge play. So I agree. Like Deebo, I like Deebo. I think he can have a huge role here. But the ownership, I think saving that 5-6% and going down to the Ayuk Kittle range, completely on board there. And I do love your Rondale Moore call as well. Another guy who's seen a ton of volume over the past couple of weeks. Saving the money going down to him helps you kind of pay up for some other guys that you can't if you were going with McCaffrey in the top spot. So do like getting to some Rondale Moore for some differentiation. You mentioned Robbie Gould. It's worth noting that the altitude that the elevation this game is going to be played at is extreme. It's like 7,000 feet, which is higher than even Denver. So field goal kickers, I am extremely interested in this game. Like, I don't think a 60-yard field goal is out of the question at all in this game. So field goal kickers, I am very interested. I don't usually play field goal kickers, but we have a really low total.
I absolutely have to get Prater in a couple lineups before lock here, don't I?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's the one that's going to hit the 60-yarder. Like Gold is usually under 50, but he's accurate. I think he could easily 50-yarder here. Prater has a huge leg, though. He could literally hit from like 60, 65 at this 7,000 feet or whatever we're playing at here today.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he could. And so I'm going to adjust a couple lineups to get Matt Prater into some of them, but let's pull up the lineup optimizer here and start trying to make a little DraftKings lineup where then we'll rip it to FanDuel, see if we have any differences from an optimal perspective, and then we'll get to QQs here before we hit lock. So if we're going to have Christian McCaffrey be our optimal captain today, we'll plug him in first. The next two people from my perspective that I think are musts in this lineup are going to be Rondale Moore, 6,600, nice and cheap, good salary saving option, getting tons of volume. And then probably, I think from an optimal perspective, the next person I'd want to go with would actually be 1K Trey McBride. Do you think that's all right? That's from an optimal perspective?
I do. I think that's absolutely optimal. Zach Ertz obviously placed on IR. it's going to be next man up. McBride is an athletic guy, was a talented pass catcher in college. I think he can pretty much step right into this Zach Ertz role, even if he only gets like 60% of the Zach Ertz role. He's 1K and he's going to see the field a ton. Max Williams is a little bit of a threat there, but he's more of a blocking tight end. Like he can catch some passes, but I think they go with the young guy in the Ertz role and they just leave Max Williams in that blocking role that he's been really good at. So yeah, I think McBride at 1K is easily the best value on the slate.
Cool. I'm with you. Let's do it. Let's have McBride in there. We got Moore in there. And then the nice thing about this is it leaves us over 8K for our last 3 positions. How would you prioritize the rest of the spots here? We're not going to fill out the rest of the lineup and we're going to swap over to FanDuel, but who are your priorities for the flex position here? For me personally, I think I'm looking at DeAndre Hopkins and Deebo Samuel as the next 2 players that I want to put in for cash games. How about you?
So I do want to get your thoughts on James Conner because he's kind of the one that I've had the most difficulty figuring out what to do with here. He's expensive. He does catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit if they were to find them. So it's not like the game script is gonna take him out of the game. He's going to be involved, but I agree. I would rather just find the money to get up to Hopkins. But just your thoughts on Conner. I'm having trouble on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I think he makes more sense because of his touchdown equity. But on DraftKings, I'm finding myself underweight on James Conner. How about you?
I feel similarly, and I'm actually kind of scarily finding myself underweight on both sites because it's just this 49ers defense very strong against the run. They're probably going to be leading. I'm not super thrilled about the idea of getting to a large amount of James Conner today. It kind of freaks me out. I think he might end up being a little bit of a bust.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. So I think Hopkins is definitely the way that I want to go here. Gives us a second Cardinals pass catcher, but if we're projecting, I mean, it's a 10-point spread. So if we're projecting him to play from behind, plus their high pass rate already, just as a team overall, I love getting the 2 high volume pass catchers for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that makes sense. Now, let's switch it over to FanDuel. A couple other cheap pieces you can consider here for the cash for your cash game lineup here. You're looking at guys like before we just pivot away there, a defense, a kicker, or George Kittle, probably somebody like that in that range there. But switching it over to FanDuel here, we talked about Christian McCaffrey being our favorite captain. I think it makes sense for him to be the favorite MVP here as well from an optimal perspective, just because he's the top projected scorer today. So it makes sense. If you're trying to get different, who is your favorite on FanDuel today? I think mine is going to be Rondale Moore.
So I like Moore better on DraftKings just because he's a volume dependent guy more so than a touchdown guy. I'm looking at Colt McCoy, like 5% ownership for a quarterback. I know it's not comfortable. It's a backup, but like quarterbacks should score the most points on their team, especially on FanDuel where it's half PPR and you don't get the rushing or receiving yards bonuses. I mean, I don't know. It's not a comfortable play. First of all, he's really expensive, but the volume from this Cardinals offense that we're kind of projecting here, I think Colt McCoy is a really interesting option.
Yeah, I think he is too. I'm getting to a decent amount of Colt McCoy, a decent amount of Rondale Moore. I don't like a decent amount of DeAndre Hopkins as well. A little bit less of the San Fran players outside of Garoppolo and McCaffrey, just because to me they're not going as lower owned as some of these other guys. Like one of the reasons I like taking shots on Moore and Hopkins in that spot is we're probably only going to see them at about 5% ownership. So large field stuff here. MMEing. I don't think it's too crazy to take shots on kickers and defenses in this game, but from an optimal perspective, it goes McCaffrey for me, and then my initial pivots are going to be the 2 Arizona receivers and then the 2 quarterbacks as well. we might as well start looking to build a little lineup here on FanDuel, and then we'll swap it to QQs quick. We'll start with McCaffrey in our MVP. Who is the next person you are looking at as a must in the utility position for optimal lineups today on FanDuel?
So I don't know that there's a must. If I had to pick one I felt best about, it would be Hopkins again. But I think that just from a floor perspective, both quarterbacks are very much in play here. If you would prefer to go that route, and I think you kind of have to, I don't know that you can fit two of the three in, so you kind of have to make the decision here. It would be Hopkins for me.
Yeah, I think so. That makes sense on FanDuel. Just a lot of touchdown equity, plugging in Hopkins. And then after we do that, we are going to start needing to look at saving some salary. Is Rondale Moore cheap enough that we can fire him in there with Hopkins? If we do that, is it scary that we don't have Colt McCoy also? What do you think?
I think not having McCoy is okay. Moore is a little bit expensive. Let's go value first. I think either of the kickers I'd be completely fine with. And defenses are cheaper. Like the 49ers defense is very priced up on DraftKings, but on FanDuel here, they're just 9,500. I don't mind the 49ers defense even. So I think kicker or defense here is where I'd be looking.
Yeah, I like that idea too. The 49ers defense, both kickers are guys that I like. But one of the reasons why, for me personally, I'm not making one main lineup and I just hand built a bunch of small ones today is because I think my favorite way to go about things is like, well, if I have McCaffrey in there and I got the 49ers defense in there, well, guess who my probably favorite value on the slate is? And it's Elijah Mitchell. And so with that kind of filling the lineup itself out that way, I kind of would rather just do something that's maybe suboptimal and just play more tournament style for me personally today, because to me, optimal doesn't really correlate tonight. And that's why I don't really like optimization for this game, which just kind of feels different than usual.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to plug Mitchell in, I'm pretty sure one of those other Arizona pass catchers that you really like fit really well in this lineup. You probably have this exact lineup that we've built here. And I agree with you. Like playing two running backs that are both expensive on the same team is not something I generally do on Showdown, but it makes sense for this game and how it's projected by Vegas and how I kind of see it playing out as well. So just very heavy run script from the 49ers, very pass heavy game script from the Cardinals. So same page there.
Yeah. And I will say, like, quick, the only lineups that I have James Conner in today, this is kind of my biggest stance. The only time I'm playing James Conner is either with him at the MVP position and a full San Fran stack, or with Jimmy Garoppolo in the MVP position and James Conner as my only Cardinal today. Other than that, I'm kind of going with the idea of just fading James Conner today, kind of assuming that we're going to get a big running, they're just going to get stopped. I'm going to start looking at QQs here. Hit the like button for us. Let's get this like count up over 25. Otherwise, I can't even look at the YouTube chat for QQs. I'm just going to keep talking about stupid stuff. So, TJ, I need some winners. We've been just breaking even lately. Need to get over the hump. How am I doing it today? I think you play both running backs on San Fran, 1 to 2 kickers, only one of the two Arizona pass catchers between Rondale Moore and DeAndre Hopkins. And you get a little bit different by doubling up on running backs and playing some defenses and kickers today altogether. I think that's how we are going to get our winners today. What about you, Keith?
Yeah, I like everything you just said there. I don't really have much to add even. I was just looking at some Connor stuff. 20, like the roll is great, but even last week, like the efficiency just isn't there. He only scored 22 points on FanDuel last week because he had 2 touchdowns. We just got to keep James Conner out of the end zone, and I really like this James Conner fade. So that's the other thing I would add there.
James Conner fade. We are on it. Let's roll with it. I'm going to start looking at YouTube here. people are fading Debo, fading Hopkins. I don't mind the Debo idea, but I think the Hopkins one is scary. And the thing that scares me about Debo as well is he's going to be potentially involved in the running game, the short passing game. Even if they're up, he could still be involved. And so that's why I don't mind mixing in some Debo in. What do you think about fading Kittle completely? Or would you mix him in with Debo or Moore or Kittle lineups? That one doesn't really make sense. But just because of how bad Arizona is against tight ends, I don't mind the idea of Kittle, but I'm honestly only playing him today in my Jimmy Garoppolo captain lineups. And then that's basically about it for QQs. Before lock here, give me a hot take and something or someone that will break the slate.
Let's see here. I don't want to go with the super obvious ones. I think McCaffrey and Hopkins both smash. I will go Trey McBride catches a touchdown along with 4 for 40, and you definitely have to have him on DraftKings. I think he makes the optimal lineup on FanDuel as well.
I like it. I think that's a fun call there. It's showdown night for tight ends. They're saying we heard nothing about Ayuk. I like Ayuk in tournaments today, especially if I got Jimmy Garoppolo as my captain, or I like the idea of even playing Ayuk as a contrarian captain option. He was one of the people I mentioned as my MME wanting to get overweight on somebody contrarian options. Does the Arizona value make them more popular, playing some 4-2 builds, thinking that they might be low owned? Do you think the Arizona value is going to be worrisome today? I think even McBride on DraftKings, I think he's actually one of the more under-owned plays on the slate.
I agree with that as far as under-owned on the slate. I do think Rondale Moore will be plenty popular because of his DK price. I don't think he will be as much on FanDuel. But yes, I do agree that people will build more Arizona heavy than the spread would indicate because the better values are on Arizona.
Yeah, I agree with you. That makes sense there. Checking back to Discord. No questions in the Discord chat. I don't think I really have any hot takes today. My hottest take is just that I want to fade James Conner. Other than that, I'm just mixing and matching different people in the MVP spots with McCaffrey. Whenever I'm doing McCaffrey in my MVP slots, I'm getting different in elsewhere. And then when I'm playing a very contrarian MVP, that's where I'm starting to get a little bit chalkier in my builds. But I've found some ways to get more Matt Prater in there. Like I said earlier, it's massive elevation there. Bigger than Denver, biggest you will see in a football game. And so these kickers could be kicking some long field goals today. I like getting them in there for some value as well. We are just about to hit lock here. So that'll do it for this edition of the pre-lock show. Make sure you check out scoresandodds.com. And make sure you check out all of our content on RotoGrinders. It's Thanksgiving this week, so there's going to be lots of different football contents coming throughout the week. So make sure you are ready for that one. And I'm going to be back for on Thursday morning for the pre-lock show, helping you out with that one as well. So on behalf of myself, on behalf of Keith, that'll do it for this show, and we will see you later, RotoGrinders.